I
Roll
believe.
call of the members of the Ways and Means Subcommittee. Councilor Janino? Here. Councilor McKenna? Here. Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Sereno?
Here.
Here. Council President Zambudo?
Here.
Here. And Chairman Visconti?
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
Tonight we have Public Works as well as some other sections of the budget that will probably be handled by Mr. Viskey. But let's start off with the Public Works DPW. So if Mr. Argenzio would come to the podium, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, and members of the Ways and Means Committee. I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the members of the Public Works Department and the members of the Water and Donnie and the members of the Water and Sewer Division coming in during this pandemic and keeping all the work flowing this past year. The administrative ends of both our divisions, Water and Sewer and Public Works, did an outstanding job of keeping everything going. And I'd like to acknowledge the passing of Vincent Tenaglia. He was a member of our Facilities Division, and in the short period of time that Vinny was here, he proved to be an excellent employee and just an all-around great person, and our hearts go out to his family. Thank you. I assume you're in the same order as I am. We'll start with the administrative end of it.
And that is for edification at pages 52, 53, 54, 55, all the way to 57. Actually, 59. Section 2. So, yes.
Okay. So a few of the things that the administrative end was able to accomplish this year. We worked closely with the Public Health Department to provide personal protective equipment throughout the city. We provided logistical support for the distribution and setup of testing and vaccine sites. And we are in the process of a new work order system, a cartograph system, which is much more extensive and involved than our current 311 mobile system. It should help with the tracking and following of all our work order systems. We can start with the payroll structure of the administrative end. You'll notice that there are two new positions, one of them being a construction oversight position. As you're well aware, the Department of Public Works has a lot of City Hall renovations, office renovations. We now kind of taken over from the Community Development Office, roadway repairs, sidewalk repairs. So this person would oversee all these operations and keep an eye on all these contractors, make sure they're doing the work to our standards, also keeping an eye on public utilities such as National Grid and all the different contractors that rip up our city streets to make sure that things are patched and put back in a manner to our liking. The second job is a business manager. This is more of a financial position, and Mr. Viskey was advocating for this. He said that most DPWs and water sewer divisions throughout the Commonwealth have a position like this to kind of handle the millions of dollars that flow through both our departments. And I believe if you have any questions, he'd probably be better off answering those. If you have any questions,
Yeah, certainly. Like Paul alluded to, the business structure of the DPW, it's almost its own construction company, and what I feel like could help the business run better is to have someone full-time internally be the day-to-day administrative operator of the DPW department, as well as some water and sewer operations. And some of the things that we'd like to try to accomplish here is just a payroll administration of the department, and to modernize. We currently are using time cards. We're a little bit antiquated in the way we track our time and our accruals and such, and we're really about to step up the modification of that through ExecuTime payroll system that is an offset of our Munis current financial software. We also, we're lacking in the documentation of our formal policies and procedures in a lot of cases. We'd like to tighten up that policies and procedures of the department and help put together bid specifications and contract administration and the like. So the way I envision it with the mayor and Donnie is to kind of have a superintendent, more of the outside management of the men and the projects themselves, and have someone full-time administrative-wise just adhering to the budget, the purchase orders, the procurement, the bid specifications that need to be done, and some of the formal documentation of policies and procedures and such. We've developed a job description that we're putting together, finalized, with the hope that this job is funded, and once it is, we'd like to try to find someone to handle the day-to-day internal operations of the department.
Anybody have any questions for that now, or should I let him continue and I will, we'll come back to that
Sure.
after that? How's that? And
That's-
I'd like to mention that we have subcommittee member Councilor Powers as well as Councilor Ira Novoselsky present in the meeting. Thank you. So why don't we continue and then we'll go back.
Sure, that's fine with me.
Paul, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Not to, with this section nonetheless. How's that?
Yep, that's fine with me. Now we're into the line items for the administration, fairly mundane. You'll see that the contracted services, the Department of Children's and Families, has been removed from this particular section, but it appears later on in the Parks and Open Space. Office supplies, fairly self-explanatory. Equipment and supplies. The computer operations, there's an increase there. The work order system that I mentioned previously, the cartograph system, comes at a higher cost, so that would absorb that money for that system. If anyone has any questions, just stop me and I'll just keep rolling along.
Let's open it up for discussion for this section. How's that? And
Okay.
we'll break it up so we can continue and we don't have to go back and forth from sections. So let me open it up to any councilors first and see if they have any questions. Councilors? No? Okay, it looks like I'm... all right, let's start off with the two employees that are being added. Now, I saw in the water and sewer department, and I'm sure Donnie will touch on that as well, is that there's also a construction oversight position being added on that side. Is two needed, first and foremost, and that's number one.
I think what we're trying to achieve here is we rely heavily on a lot of contracted services and third parties to help us manage and administrate some of our larger capital projects, and it's quite costly. In the case of water and sewer, I think we spend upwards of $600,000 a year in that service. Obviously, with the more work that we're doing on the DPW side, including a potential $5 million roadway bond that we're proposing as part of the capital plan, it's just we can use more hands on deck, quite frankly, and to just ensure that we're getting what we pay for with regard to contracts, making sure that no one's skimping on any of the materials, and making sure they're not cutting any corners, and just to have an overall a sense of security on getting what we're paid for. I think of it as putting some belts and suspenders on our capital projects just to make sure that we're being efficient and we're not getting overcharged, and try to avoid the change orders that come about and such like that. But certainly would like to try to get away from paying contractors, third-party management companies and consultant companies to do some of this work that I feel that we can do more efficiently internally.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I should have spoke up sooner, but
Okay.
I was in the middle of it.
Council President Zambudo.
Thank you. These are the type of positions that I don't mind adding. These are important positions, because what ends up happening is when you have these big contracts and they're being managed by themselves, it's really not an efficient way to do business. And I'm not accusing anybody of not doing what they're supposed to and so forth, but it is always better to have our eyes on the prize and see that we're getting exactly what we're paying for, and we're not getting more contract than we're getting work. So I'm comfortable with these positions because I think they're going to pay off in spades.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I may, and I know, Rich, you and I have had the discussion about the business manager, and I'm on board. I think it's an important position. You mentioned the fact that it was, now, I know it's solely getting paid out of DPW, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that it was both a position that was going to handle both the DPW and the water and sewer. Is that not the case, or is that, I mean, we're paying a good dollar for that salary, so I just want to get the most bang for our buck. I'm sure we both agree to that?
I agree with that, yes. I suppose we could have put that half in one budget and half in the other budget, but yeah, I certainly think that this business manager will supervise and administer all the administrative duties of both water, sewer.
Now, is that, and as a manager position, it looks like it's creating help me understand, is it another level of management, or is it, what is that? Like, it's in terms of, you said it's reporting to Donnie or Paul. How is that whole structure coming to play?
Well,
I mean, if it has been discussed, because I'm just wondering, that's all.
Yeah, and Donnie is the chief of infrastructure.
Yes.
Public Works is the top, and then the two main superintendents on water and sewer side would be Joe Maglione and Paul Argenzio as superintendent of DPW.
Yeah.
And again, I imagine those jobs, and I envision those jobs as really the management of the personnel and the outside duties that go along with making sure people are where they're supposed to be and everything else. But just the administrative duties themselves cut into the ability for those positions to actually perform at their maximum capacity. So this would be someone, I believe, that would, do some coordinating of trainings to help negotiate through collective bargaining agreements, to help modernize technologies, to help bring in a new payroll system, just some of the stuff that, again, if we had our superintendents performing that, then we're lacking on making sure that everybody's where they're supposed to be outside and kind of managing the crew themselves. So it's like an administration and finance position. It would actually help us in finance as well, because a lot of times we need to put bid specification together. We want to make sure we're following procurement laws correctly, and just to the extent that we can run our government more like a business and try to be efficient and save money. That's really the goal here. So it's not it's a little bit tough to navigate, I suppose, because it's new, and I can tell you all the things that are in the job description I envision, but I think with the right person, overall, it's going to just help the DPW and water sewer just run more effectively.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. When I think a good you can never have enough finance guys there, and like you said, the superintendent, both on the water side and Donnie, and Paul, they work effectively out in the field, and sometimes, not to say that they don't do a great job inside by any stretch of the imagination. So it's good to see. It's a good number in terms of a salary, and I'd like to see it, try to get the most bang for our buck, and I'm sure you'll comply with that.
Yeah, we're hoping. It's actually, believe it or not, it's a tough job market out there, meaning that it's hard to get people to apply. So we've done some studies that these positions sometimes pay up to $120,000 a year. In some cases, they pay $70,000, $80,000 a year. We try to pick it in the middle, and hopefully we can find someone who has some good business acumen that can, not so much do double duties of someone's doing, but to just put more manpower behind our DPW so we can continue on our successes that we've had.
Great. Okay. Paul, if you may.
Yeah,
continue
no,
on,
I think Richard covered that.
Thank you for that, Rich. by
Yes,
the way.
thank you very much.
Snow and ice, if you may, page
Sure.
54.
Okay. Snow and ice, this, as you know, is probably one of the only accounts that you can deficit spend. So we try our best to, come up with a guesstimate as to what you're going to be facing into some upcoming winter. So these have all been level funded, and we cross our fingers and hope we have a light winter, and, if not, then it's addressed, through the auditing department. So these are all level funded, and fingers crossed we don't have any snow.
If I would, I'll just add to that, statutorily, one of the only budgeted line items that could be overspent is the snow and ice budget, and the law states that if we raise that budget, we're bound to that number. We can't go backwards, or else we may be at risk of losing some of our FEMA subsidies and such, so
Okay.
we tend to keep that budget level, and a couple of years back, we actually finished in a surplus when there was no snow, but I think this year, you'll see in the budget, we have a $390,000 overspend of that budget that will raise as part of the 2022 recap.
Okay, you answered the question. So the reason of not raising that, because we overspent last year, and then we're keeping it the same. So there's a method to it, man.
Yeah, once you increase that, you can never go back.
Yeah,
So it's,
no. We don't want to do that then. I agree.
And one of the things we did, we've upgraded our GPS units for all the contractors, so we're much better capable of watching where they're going, how many hours they're putting in. The 311 system has access to that, so as complaints come in, they can see it in real time. If somebody's in an area, or if somebody complains and says, well, nobody's been on our street for several hours, they can look right on the GPS system and identify what truck's been there and when they've been there. So that's been a big improvement. We upgraded that system this year.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to Highway and Sign Division.
Does it, let me open it up to some councils, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
Any subcommittee members first? No? Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure being here.
Welcome.
Being the chairman of the Public Works Subcommittee, I felt it was imperative that I show up and just go over everything and listen to everything that Paul and Donnie would have to say, and of course, our Chief Financial Officer. Street signs, this material, is 20,000 enough for, especially for the amount of signs that I
That's true.
request.
That's just for Ward 2.
I'm one of the biggest requesters of signs, because I believe in the sign program.
Yes.
And
So-
people have to know what's going on.
A couple of
with parking.
these accounts have been historically supplemented with some excess money that the auditing department and the mayor add into this through free cash appropriations. The tree account is one. This has been another historically. So and some park and playground equipment. You'd have to ask Mr. Viscay if that's anticipated this year. But that's historically happened the last few years, that there's been supplemental appropriations in a few of these line items. So,
Yeah, we did have a large appropriation to replace all of the parking signs in the street sweeping signs throughout the city, so those dollars were hopefully spent in a manner that will allow us to work within the budget that we have accordingly now. Of course, if there's any kind of new program or any kind of new thing that needs signage, we may come before you to ask for more money, but in some cases, like Mr. Argento said, we have some flexibility in moving some funds around or using our capital improvement plan to do some major changes.
Excellent. The next item I want to look at is the contracted pothole and trench repair. I noticed that you're cutting it down to 20,000. that correct?
Well-
Yes, excuse me, go ahead.
I don't think Paul necessarily cut it down. Well, that was cut down to the fact that we did bring on new equipment to do more of that, those services in-house. We
Yes.
bought a brand-new hot box, and we're hoping, and,
Okay.
we always hope that when we buy equipment such as that, we can rely less on our contracted services.
Right,
Understood.
the highway department's been very successful in keeping up with the potholes.
And they have been. They've been doing
Thank you.
really an outstanding job. On street sweeping, I know that's one thing that I'm very concerned about. I know it's been, my neighborhood gets a lot of it on a weekly basis, and also the normal once a month sweeping. But one of the things that, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, as far as the street sweeping in this fall with the leaves, we talked about potentially hiring the vacuum sweeper to pick up leaves, because people complain about the brush system and how, kind of a mess it leaves with, excuse the pun, leaves. But is there any thought about putting on for a couple weeks or a month?
Well, yes, we historically do that, and we've also, I think, through a council order by Councilor McKenna, we've extended street sweeping for the month of December. We did that last year, and there's enough money in the budget that allows us to hire a second sweeper during those fall months. And then we have just recently, as of 2 weeks ago, received a brand-new sweeper of our own. So we're also going to be supplementing the contracted sweeping with a brand-new sweeper of our own.
So will that contracted sweeping include the vacuum machines?
We are looking into vacuum sweeper probably for the next purchase.
For us?
For us.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we can always contract out a vacuum
Yeah.
sweeper in the fall.
Especially during the fall time when the leaves are on the ground, this gets very slippery with the
Yep.
amount of leaves that are left over.
Positively.
And they don't come back a second time, so people concerned about that.
Correct.
Other than that, I feel comfortable with what I see and the new equipment that we're buying for you guys, and which is outstanding. And-
Yes, we appreciate that.
If I can interrupt for one moment, what I wanted to do, so we don't go back and forth, I'd like to see Mr. Argenzio just go through each section of the budget, and payroll, non-payroll section, and then we'll open it up to the councilors. How's that? So it gives them an opportunity to explain it, which may in turn answer some of those questions that you already had.
It's your meeting, Counselor.
Thank you.
Okay, so concerning the Highway and Sign Division, we recently replaced about 80% of the ADA compliant signs throughout the city. Those are the new blue street signs that you've been noticing. We have installed, it says 3,500 here, but I think we're closer to 4,000, new street sweeping and overnight resident parking only signs throughout the city. And one of the things the Highway Division did, we have aggressively addressed the backlog of sidewalk repairs, and that historically was on a 2-3 year rotation. We were able to get everything repaired up to the fall of last year, 2020, and we've started the process again this spring, so we're hopefully keep current with those sidewalk repairs that historically we always fell behind on. As far as the payroll section goes, they're all current positions. There are no new positions. And that is about the same as last year. If anyone has any comment on that, I'd be glad to answer. The Highway and Sign Division. Mhm. And then excuse me.
Go ahead.
In the line items, the street sign, as Councilor Novoselsky brought out, that's level funded this year. The contracted painting services, that's for the painting of crosswalks and school zone signs and what have you. One of the things we did a year and a half ago, we went to a different type of paint. There was a supplemental appropriation, and we went to a epoxy paint that has worked out fantastic. They've really lasted, and we're very impressed with that. So we're able to keep all our crosswalks, in a good condition and not fading like they were in years past. Pothole and trench repair, we've already spoken about. Street sweeping, traffic signalization repair, that's for all our traffic lights throughout the city, and city-owned street lights such as along Broadway. Materials, a lot of this goes towards the asphalt that the highway crew uses, amongst a whole plethora of things that the DPW purchases to supply our different our sign and highway crews. New equipment, that's just an account if you need a chop saw or a compactor and things of that nature, things that are just a little bit more expensive than your average rakes and brooms. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything about the highway and sign division.
I can open up the discussion for this division. Council Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, as you know, the Traffic Commission recently made several areas, for instance, the Pines, Riverside is coming up, the Bay Road area, and the Oak Island area on the other side. And signage is going to be going up there. It's going to be required. And I just want to, make sure that, we have enough money in that budget that we can address this in once it happens, in a speedy manner, because people from the beach that can't or don't want to put money in the parking meters, they're going to be looking for, other places to park. And those areas that I just mentioned are extremely accessible to Revere Beach, as areas in Beachmont also. So my question is, do we have enough money in there to satisfy that? And the other concern I have is we talked about vacuum truck to vacuum the leaves. This is something I put a motion in over a year and a half ago, and I haven't seen any real significant progress on that. And that's very important also, because the work that Donnie Chamara and his crew do with regard to cleaning catch basins, etc. It sort of leaving those leaves there going back into the catch basins. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me, and I'm sure it wouldn't to yourself or Donnie. So I think the quickest time we can get those leaves off the street and stop them from getting into those catch basins, and in some cases clogging up our lateral lines from basin to basin is so important. So that's something I think, is very important. And
So I'll let Don Chermello, when he comes up, he can address the catch basins, and I believe he has a plan for that. As far as the signs for resident parking and street sweeping, the Point of Pines has just recently been completed, the ocean side. We have just ordered the signs for the Oak Island Bay Road section. Those, I believe, are scheduled to come in Monday or Tuesday, and within a week, 2 weeks, that area will be done. The Riverside area is still before the Traffic Commission, and I believe that's coming public hearing in August. And if that is passed, which I anticipate it will be, we'll get those up as fast as humanly possible.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any subcommittee members first? Council President Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions per se. I just want to tell Paul, and he's already mentioned his staff for all the work they did during COVID, and how much we appreciate it, and how much we appreciate all you do. I know you're always very responsive to me anytime I reach out to you, and the men performed admirably, and they deserve kudos. So that's what
Thank
I'm
you
doing.
for your comments.
Thank you.
Council Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Paul, I noticed in your fiscal 22 goals and objective, you mentioned before the cartograph
Yes.
program. I hope it works, but in
We do too. It's an expensive
I know.
system, and I'm sure it will.
Because I know the 311 system I love, as you know. But I did, I have noticed, and I've brought it to your attention as many times that there are 311 work requests that are closed that have not really been completed. And I'm concerned that people, it may not even be someone in the department, or, as you
Right.
said, we kind of crossed over on the events last week. But
Right.
in general, in the past, there have been many work orders that have been closed that have not really been completed. And I don't know who closes them, who has the authority to do stuff like that, but, that concerns me.
Well, the cartograph system should cure that. I know 311 uses a Q alert system. They need to get the complaints, then they have to manually load them into the mobile 311. So this cartograph system should streamline that, and we should be in a much better
I
place.
hope so. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Council Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, through you to Paul, I just want to say thank you for always answering my calls and being accessible. As a department head, you always come out on site and meet me and speak with the residents whenever an issue occurs, or if there's an issue, you just handle it and take care of it. So I want to thank you and the members of your department too, who are always responsive and helpful. So
Thank you,
thank
Counselor.
you, Paul.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to also say thank you for everything that you do for me in Ward 1. I mean, I call you, you're always responsive. Your members, too, the members of your department, I call them to pick up something, a card or something, they're always there. So I just want to say thank you for everything. I really appreciate your hard work and, your loyalty to me. I feel that's how I feel. So, and I hope I can give you the same loyalty. So,
You're
thank you.
welcome. Welcome, Counselor.
Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, thank you for everything that you do. You guys are really the best. You have a great team. I know I drive you crazy sometimes, but every time I call, you're always there to answer. I know there's not a solution to every problem, but you always, work through it with me or give me the history, and 99.9% of the time, you do have a solution. So thank you for all that you do. It really is appreciated, and, the work that you guys do down the DPW directly impacts the quality of life of our residents every single day, whether it be a tree in front of their house or a pothole that they drive by. Those things all matter, and I'm excited at the state level. Last night, we passed the Chapter 90 funding, so
Very good.
we'll get some more money to do more work in the cities of Revere and the rest of the district, so I look forward to seeing you guys be able to accomplish more with that.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to say too, Paul, you're not going anywhere. We have a couple
We
of
have
other,
a couple more to go,
other divisions, so
Yes.
I guess those accolades are going to keep coming. How's
Coming,
that?
right. Thank
But
you.
I think Councilor Novoselsky had a question regarding the Highway and Sign Division.
Right.
Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as far as the ADA compliance signs, that's a no-brainer. You guys do a great job with that. I know everybody's giving you kudos, and you deserve them. One thing I was going to ask you about the street sweeping and overnight parking signs in my neighborhoods. I
Yes.
know a couple of weeks ago, you had mentioned you were finishing up Ward 1, and you were coming into Ward 2.
Yes.
When's that going to happen?
Well, within the next 2-3 weeks, I say we should be there. It's a little bit hard navigating Ward 1, Ward 2. Every street seems to have its own little, nuance to it. Half a street is one thing, the other half is another. So the rest of the city was easy. Ward 1, Ward 2, not quite as easy. So we finished Beachmont the other day. We went with the traffic control officer up and down each street to make sure that the sign company that we hired was doing the correct thing. I believe that's been squared away, and now we're going to move on to Ward 5 around the Bay Road, Oak Island section, and also to your section. It has to be done a street by street. It's,
Right.
so it's a little more difficult and tedious, but we certainly will be doing
Because
it.
I know the Traffic Commission changed all the time zones.
Right.
To 24/7.
Right.
Okay, so, those signs still have to be changed.
Right.
And
The ones that
those-
say midnight to 6 have to be changed to 24 hours.
Right, or the 24-hour ones that are there and also have a midnight to 6,
Right.
but the midnight to 6 ones also have the street sweeping on it.
Yes, they do.
So-
We hope, we tried to do a combination sign.
Right.
It was successful, probably over 80% of the city, a couple of
Right,
sections.
so
we
I
need
know
to-
most of my people still don't know that it's 24/7 yet
Right.
because of the signage.
Right.
But a lot of some of the streets don't have any new signs,
Right.
as far as street sweeping. So,
We had purchased a large number of signs. We kind of wanted, through the Traffic Commission that I sit on, kind of let the dust settle in a couple of these areas. Some of these areas, we bought new signs, put them up, and a few weeks later, we were taking them down and changing them.
so we
because of
we
the-
expect this to be done before
Yes.
this end of the summer?
Yes, that
Okay.
would, that's.
Thank you for that
It's a good
section,
lead
Mr.
time.
No
Chairman.
worries. Any other counselors? Paul, you touched on the sidewalk, on doing new sidewalks, and
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor Janino just mentioned about the Chapter 90
Chapter
money.
90, yes.
And how does that work in terms of, this is new sidewalks for fiscal year 2022, correct?
That fiscal year 2022.
2022,
yes.
and I believe in talking to Mr. Viscay too, there was mention of some type of program of determining which sidewalks get replaced, and wasn't that?
I don't believe it's the sidewalks per se, but we have
Street
street
scan.
scan that's,
Okay,
did a full scan of all our streets, and I believe we're probably right around due to do a review of that plan, I believe, aren't we? That's a question to Donnie
Yes.
or Paul, but we did pay to have them scan all the streets over the winter, and then the idea is you can give them a budget of what you intend to spend, and they can give you a pretty good spending plan on where to spend that money, whether it's a full depth reconstruction or a mill and overlay, or we're also researching potentially crack sealing as well as a way to kind of preserve streets as well as repair the real ones that are in disrepair. But your money stretches a little farther if you can get to them and keep them maintained before they require full cost recovery.
okay. And the list of, has there been a new list for sidewalks?
so
How does that work, if you don't mind?
No, not at all. The sidewalk, individual sidewalk repairs are usually generated through the 3-1 system. Constituent complaints, things that Donnie or myself drive around, maybe a complaint hasn't come in, but it's obvious that it needs to be repaired. Right now, the Chapter 90 money, we've just put in, as of today, to do Eastern Avenue and Taft Street. So that will be the fiscal #22 money spent on Chapter 90. In addition to that, the city always appropriated money. And Richard alluded to a $5 million capital borrowing plan that I believe he's going to bring before you. And so that will be over the next few years, and then through different avenues, Don Chamella, myself, city councilors, will develop a list on how to spend that money. One of the things that Donnie has been adamant about, and he's correct, we don't want to do streets unless water pipes, gas pipes, and sewer lines are in a good condition. We like new gas, a line sewer, new water, so we're not digging up the street, 6 months later, or a week later, or a
Agreed.
year later. So that will be a concerted effort to come up with the streets, to spend that money in a good manner, so we're not going back, ripping up what we just did. So that should be coming down the pipeline fairly soon.
Any questions? Councilor McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with the Chapter 90 money, the last 2 years, I haven't gotten any streets in Ward 1. And I did get Crescent Ave, which was a little bit more than, because they had to put a piece of sidewalk and some handicap ramps. But I'm asking if they could equally, spread them out to, we have 6 wards, and I just would ask if they could equally, spread them out to each ward, because, like I said, some councilors last year got 5, 6, 8 new streets. The year before, some councilors got 5, 6, 8 streets, and Ward 1 didn't get anything. And I was told that I got Sprague Street, but that was
Right.
supposed to be 3 years ago, and they ran out of Chapter 90 money.
Right.
So I'm just asking if they could, if, when you determine who gets what,
Right.
that I think every single counselor, ward counselor, should get at least 1 or 2 streets a year, and
So
not be, Donnie, you want to talk?
Right.
And not be, just, I understand that you have a method that goes around and tells you what streets need to be done first, but there's a lot of streets in Ward 1 that
Right.
really,
And we
Need.
endeavor to be sensitive to that as far as the different wards, so every area of the city gets treated as fairly as
Equally.
possible and equally as possible. As I stated this year, Taft Street, which is Ward 1, is slated to be done this summer and fall, along with Eastern Avenue. So we are sensitive to that, and we try our best
oh, I know.
to
I'm
spread
just saying that, for the last 2 years.
spread this money around so everyone, and all areas of the city are treated equally.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, if you don't mind, I think Donnie would like
Not
to
at all.
make a comment on that.
Don Charmella, Chief of
Welcome.
Infrastructure. Good evening, everybody. So I'd like to speak to that, just so that the thinking is on, at least my thinking is, and, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just streets and black asphalt, it's dollars. It's the dollars we spend on any infrastructure project, whether it be water, whether it be drain, whether it be sewer, whether it be streets, whether it be sidewalk. It's dollars that can be gauged the best to spread the money around evenly. So there's 2 factors. Street scan is one that grades the street, and you can't argue with numbers. So if street scan grades a street very low, that basically becomes a safety issue. And also the usage of the street, how much traffic that street sees. So regardless of the logistics of where the street may be, or the demographics of the street, if the street sees a lot more traffic, that street is going to wear more. So we can't necessarily take a street by ward. We have to take it based on condition, and that's what we rely on Street Scan for, to give us that number average, and also just the condition of the street. So getting back to the dollars being spent in any particular ward, what we would like to do, and this will be for further discussion, is we take the dollars. Now, in particular in your area, Councilor McKenna, we had a $6.7 million sewer project, and that was a significant investment into that ward to enhance the sewer system, or upgrade the sewer system that had been a tremendous problem for the city for many years with SSOs and also drainage issues down on Henry Street, Jones Road, and what have you. So those dollars were earmarked for that particular area. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the amount of dollars being spent in a given area. And also a $591,000 drainage project on Pearl Ave. So, we're trying to be fair, and I can't say, well, let's just be fair with streets. I think we have to be fair with dollars. So that's the way we're looking at it, and that's just some thought, and we can have a further discussion about that some other time.
Absolutely. Thank you for that explanation.
And if I can just expand on the street scan model, we also had street scan just do an inventory of all the signs in the city. So this cartograph system, we'll be able to input all our assets that have all the signs in the city will go into this system, and we'll have an inventory of where these signs are and what these, and what they say. Second, we have just got a purchase order for them to street scan to go back out and do an inventory of all our trees in the city. So we'll have an accurate assessment of how many trees, and we'll be able to manage that a little better. And that will also be put into the cartograph system as asset. So the street scan model has proved very effective for us.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I might.
Councilor Sereno.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Through the budget hearings, I've been trying not to discuss Ward 6 and been keeping it very general. But while we're on the topic of street scan, I just had a quick question. Is there a way that councilors can find out where on the list a particular street might be? Because just for instance, before I became a councilor, I live on Carlson Ave. Before I was elected in 2018, Carlson Ave got done. In 2019, North Ave, the street next door, the next street over got done. And then I had a resident on South Ave call me this past year and say, hey, everyone, I think Kingman Ave got done too. And all the streets around me are getting done, but where's my, when's my street getting done? So is it possible to?
So
I never
street
thought
scan,
to call you.
obviously, it's paid for by the city, it's a public document, so you'll be able to see the data, I'm sure, through Ruben can show you that. But again, it's a tool, but it's not the be-all and end-all, because, as Donnie has stated, you might have a street that, we need to do the gas, we need to do the water, we need to line the sewer. So it's a great tool, it's a great informational, but does street scan just make a list for us and we go by the list? No, because there's other extenuating circumstances that go into that. But the street scan is, it's public information, so I'm sure you'll be able to take a look at it.
Councilor Novoselsky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Paul. Paul, I know the street scan we did, 4 or 5 years
Yes.
ago. We got a copy, a colored copy
Yes.
of the conditions of all the streets, which
Right, they're
was
color-coded.
outstanding. It was color-coded.
Yeah.
The reds, the orange, the greens, and
Yeah.
in some cases, some of my streets were done because of the reds.
Okay.
But some of them didn't, and there's still.
Right. There's
they're still
extenuating
pending.
circumstances.
They're still pending, right? And
Right.
I understand that.
Right.
And I know some of my streets were under the Mass Works program and
Correct.
grants that we got and stuff like that. And I'm very aware of what you mentioned with the pipes down
Right.
below, like Centennial Ave. Can't get done until we finish the water pipes down there. I don't know what sewer is, and I don't know where gas is, but I think that colored map was outstanding, and hopefully we can get a new copy,
That
copy of it.
that certainly can be provided to you.
An updated one?
Sure,
Yeah.
positively, yes.
That'd be
We'll
terrific.
certainly get that to you.
If that could happen, I would appreciate it. I'm sure the other councils would too. Thank you.
I can understand the ward councilors. Everybody wants everything for their ward, so
Right.
and they all want to get as much as they can.
Right.
And
That's their job,
I
right?
understand, that's their job, right,
Right.
is to advocate for their ward. So I know it's not an easy thing for both you and Donnie to determine where, what streets get done and the administration. So it's, but I also understand the councilor's point and wanting to advocate for their ward as well. But that being said, we can move on. If nobody else has any questions regarding the Highway and Sign Division, then we can move on to the Parks and Open Space.
Sure. So the
Division.
parks and open space, a few of the things that we did, we had a certified playground inspector go around to all our tot lots to assess the safety of them. We've also worked in conjunction with the Community Development Office, redoing Curtis Park, Sonny Myers Park, and just recently the community garden at Broad Sound Avenue. Moving on to the payroll section. So I seem to have misplaced my glasses, so bear with me. I don't know where they could have went, but, okay. Okay, thank you.
I'd give you mine, but then I'm lying.
I don't know where they could have went here. Perfect. Actually, they're better than mine. The parks and, thanks. The parks and open space, the payroll section, there's a vacant spot here. We recently had a retirement there, and that is pretty much level funded there. The senior park program, which last year we appropriated $50,000. Now, in the past, prior to COVID, that amount was, I think, close to $250,000. So we're trying to bring that program back, which is a very effective program, in a limited capacity, add a few seniors to help clean up all our parks and playgrounds, the daily trash pickup and what have you. So we hope to get that funded so we can activate them a little and give us a hand in our parks and playgrounds. Moving on to the line items, spraying and planting, all our flower planting, fertilization, mulch. We even take holiday decorations out of that. Tree removal, as you see, we had 50, we had asked for 80. It was cut by 30, but I believe that's one of the accounts that is traditionally subsidized by a supplemental appropriation. Contracted services, this is ROCA, the ROCA, which we weren't able to do last year. It was moved from the administrative end and put here, so that's what you see. Field maintenance is all our landscape contracts. This maintains all our athletic fields, maintains the turf field at the stadium and behind the high school. Tools and equipment. Police details, we use those to escort our tree service around when they're working on major thoroughfares. And capital maintenance and repair. This goes into repairing, say, the stadium, Griswold Park, major playground repairs, and things of that nature.
Great. Let me open it up to discussion or questions from any subcommittee members. Council Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, question. In the past, we've also used the maintenance crews from the Suffolk County Jail. Is there money in there to pay for the supervision of these crews?
Well, ROCA, one of the advantages of ROCA, they come with their own supervision and their own transportation. The inmate crew was a little tougher to administer. When they did come, they did perform a service for us, and they did a good job. But that is more, they would come certain days, couldn't come other days. They would come for an hour and had to go back to the facility. So in picking one of the two, ROCA, I think as a community service, and they've proved to be very reliable. So we were focusing on ROCA this
So if I'm hearing you right, ROCA is going to replace the inmate crew.
Well, they used to be, both of them used to be here.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're focusing on bringing back ROCA and the senior citizen program to a limited extent this summer.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much, Paul.
You're welcome.
If no councils have any questions, I just, in terms of the senior program, like you said, it's doubled since last year, and I believe it was last year.
Yes,
correct me
it was
if I'm wrong.
50,000 last year,
Yes,
100,000 this year.
And it's great to see that program come back and
Yes.
come into play. How many seniors do you think will be hired based on that amount?
I assume we'll be able to hire about another 10 seasonally. There are some seniors that we hire year-round. They help in the facilities here, bolstering our janitorial staff. So we should be able to hire 8 or 10, come this July if the money is appropriate.
I'm sure they're looking forward to that.
Yes, they are.
Great.
And they do a great job.
And they do a great job, which is even better. Okay, if you can continue.
Sure. Okay, so we'll move on to the Facilities Division. So a couple of things that, the Facilities Division, obviously we're working on the DPW building. I'm sure everyone is interested in that. For one reason or another, things have been a little bit delayed, or more than a little bit, but we're well on the way of finally getting this thing up and out of the ground. Donnie and I were on a conversation with our OPM today, and we hope to get this out to bid in September. So that's moving along. Another thing, our facilities, they did a great job disinfecting and deep cleaning all our municipal buildings through the COVID pandemic. And also, we have a very talented group of facilities people now that, you know, aside from just the general cleaning and dusting and what have you, they're very talented, and they've been able to do a lot of City Hall renovations, major work that we were never able to do before, and they're a very talented group. So that's helped us out quite a bit. Moving on to the line items. Just bear with me. Or I should say, moving on to the salary schedule. There's some openings there. As I mentioned before, the tragic death of Mr. Tenaglia and another retirement. We have a couple of openings there. I believe we have another employee coming on this Monday. So as far as the salary schedule, there's probably another opening there that we'll be able to fill in the near future. Now we're moving on to the line items. Street lighting, street lights, traffic signal, paying for the electricity for those, public building heat, public building lights, gasoline and oil for our trucks and heavy equipment, building maintenance and repair for all the repairs at our public buildings, maintenance of equipment, contracted services. That's a cleaning company we've tried out this year, and they've worked out successfully. It's also the same cleaning company that does the police station and the schools. So they've proven to do a very good job in conjunction with our facilities people. Rental and leases, that's for the temporary trailers down the city yard and the land that the trailers sit on. Rental equipment, copiers, we have some storage space at a local storage unit. And culvert cleaning still seems to be popping up here. It's not funded. That goes into the water and sewer. That was moved over several years ago. If you have any questions on those line items, I'll be happy.
Any questions, Councilor McKenna?
I don't have a question, Paul. I just want to say that I think City Hall is the best I've ever seen it, outside and inside. I was out there when they were raising the pride flag, and I was looking at the outside of it. It's just, it really is. It's a beautiful building, and inside too. Last year there was ceiling dust flying on Councilor Giannino's head every single meeting.
Right.
You know, so it's just nice to come into a room that's. You know, we have air conditioning. I just hope that during the winter you can try to fix the heat. But,
Well, we just had a new boiler installed 2 weeks ago.
great. That's
We haven't
wonderful.
fired it up yet, but.
because I'm always
hopefully-
freezing.
Yes.
So, but I just want to say the building looks great.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Councilor Janino.
Councilor McKenna took my thunder on the ceiling. That's exactly what I was going to say. So,
Yes.
I mean, I've been sitting in either this seat or that seat for the last 10 years, and every meeting I would have either debris on my desk, on my chair, on my head, and it was physically falling,
Right.
like the sky was falling.
Right,
So,
and,
and I'm only a person that's here, you know, a few hours a month.
Right.
There are people that work in this building 40, 50 hours, 60 hours a week that were, you know, breathing in the air and working in these conditions. So I think the fact that you guys took an effort to make it a healthy working environment for the people here, that's so important, because
Yes.
if I'm appreciative in the few hours a month that I'm here to not have the ceiling fall on my head, I'm sure the people that work here 50, 60 hours a week are appreciative as well, so thank you.
And a lot of this work can be credited to Don Charamelli. He has a great knowledge of building renovations and things, and he has been working very tirelessly to do this. So, and you know, he could be credited for that. He did been doing an excellent job here.
Any other councilors have any questions? Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, field maintenance, does that include areas like Butler Circle?
Yes,
Okay.
it does.
And I've asked a couple for 2 years now. As you know, I raised from one of the developers in the city as mitigation money, $50,000 to redo that circle. And there's a couple of spots out on the edge. It would seem to me if they put some mulching there with maybe a couple of plantings,
Okay,
and there's nothing wrong with the plantings they have now.
Right.
But just to cover up these areas, because the grass doesn't seem to be growing there, and they're right out on the edge. And I'm talking about areas similar to Brown Circle down on Broadway.
Right.
I think we could get that, it's not a big thing, but
Okay.
it's a big thing when you drive by and you see it deteriorating, going back to where it was 10 years ago.
okay.
Thank you.
We can certainly do that.
Thanks.
Counselor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, a couple things on the DPW building. Where do we stand with that as far as where is it going and what's
So, like I
going to
said,
happen with the temporary space?
temporary space, we seem to have secured a spot here in Revere. So that was a big obstacle.
Right.
And, when this thing first started, I said that would probably be the biggest obstacle to us, and that seems to have been cured. And so in our discussions this morning with the OPM, we're looking good for September to go out to bid. And, once the bids come in, whether demolition construction starts in winter, which it seems like the demolition could, then we'll certainly, we're pushing. I mean, because we know everyone's waiting, and you appropriated the money a long time ago, and in my discussion with Don this morning in the OPM, the money was appropriated 4 years ago. So now construction costs have gone up, and so we had a little bit of a struggle trying to design a building that fit into the construction, the money that was appropriated 4 years ago. It was a little bit of a struggle, more than a little bit, but we seem to be there now.
So we're going in the same spot?
We're going in the same spot.
So that's gonna come down,
That's coming down.
okay? Same size,
A little bit, the square footage is bigger.
multi-story?
No, one story.
Mezzanine level top,
Yeah, okay.
but mezzanine not meeting offices, basically storage.
Storage, yeah.
Okay. And as far as the street lighting is concerned, I know we went through the whole thing with National Grid to convert every street light in the city,
did.
which not all of them are done.
There's a
Like I
few
say,
left, that's
At least a
true.
few left.
Yeah.
How are we financially with that?
Well, I spoke with Dan Cameron, and I've had the same concerns as you. We're going to see this big decrease in the amount of money we were spending for street lighting. He explained to me that for years, the rate for street lights was the same. So just as we were converting to LED, the rates went sky high. So now it's a wash, according to National Grid. We did save a little bit of money, but the huge windfall of, cheaper rates doesn't seem to be coming to fruition. The rates have gone up, but by us converting to LED, we were able to, keep it level. That's what was explained to me by National Grid. And I've been asking that question for 6 months.
Yeah.
Where's the decrease?
In general, as far as city facilities concerned, I was in property management for 30 years with the Commonwealth of Mass, taking care of buildings, and I can't say so much of what has been done for not only this building, but the rec building, and any other.
Senior center, there's been a lot of work there.
Even though it needs more work, and we all know that.
Right.
But everything, the people we have working now are so talented, and like you said, and they're doing a terrific, terrific job, and I applaud them.
Right.
And I applaud you guys for hiring the new folks that do and love and like their job, believe it or not. Even the guys in Water Enterprise that have to go into the hole.
Right.
They're doing a great job, and, like the council said before, everything looks great, and, it's worth for what we're doing with this budget to keep them on board and keep them happy.
That's true.
So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I want to echo some of those sentiments. I mean, I think it's great. Correct me if I'm wrong, and Donnie and both of you can answer. we've taken the initiative to start doing a lot of the demolition and the renovation part in-house rather than subbing that out, which is a big deal.
Yes.
Especially when you're subbing that out to contractors rather than, and we're, rather than doing that, we're getting our own guys to do this. And whether it's giving them some overtime,
Right.
which I'm sure they're willing to take.
Right.
Obviously, I remember being in the union as well, and whenever they're offering overtime, very few ever refuse. So it's good to see that we're giving it to our own guys rather than subbing that out. So,
Positive.
and I really do agree with the other councilors that the buildings are coming along quite well, and it's just good to see that some of these renovations are being done and getting completed. So I want to commend both of you for that. I know there's work also being done on the streets and out there, but it's good to see that some of our own buildings are being done and renovated. So, and that's compliments to both of you.
Thank you.
Now, I think that concludes your department as the DPW. Does anybody else have any questions for Paul? We've kept him up here for about an hour.
Yeah, that's
so
okay. And then after Donnie,
Yes.
then I'll be back up for the solid waste.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for taking the
Okay.
time. I'm sorry about the questions.
No,
and,
that's what we're here
it's,
for.
Great. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Janino.
It's all right, I'm really far away from you. No, I was just gonna say, I think, in our comments, you're the one standing up here, so we're acknowledging you, Paul, but it is a team effort, and we do
Yes.
acknowge Don as well. You guys are a great
Well,
team.
he's
You
next, so
do
he-
a great job, so, but I just want to throw that out there. We're really lucky to have both of you, but, I
Thank
mean,
you.
You're my point person, so
Okay.
I love calling you.
Thanks.
But thank you both.
I'm sure the bouquets are gonna be coming for Donnie anytime soon, so don't worry. So, he'll get his shot. But thank you,
And I'll be back.
Paul, and welcome Donnie to the podium.
See if I can locate my glasses.
And that is pay section, this is the enterprise fund, and that's pages 11 through 15.
So, good evening, everybody, and I'd like to start out with, thanking our DPW crew, both the general side and the enterprise side, the water sewer division, that through this pandemic, they were able to still accomplish their duties since they were considered critical infrastructure. People were home, many people were home. On a regular work day, if it wasn't, during if it was during a different time, they would be at work, but everybody was home. They were using much more water. They were using much more. They were adding much more sewage to the system. There was much more cooking going on at home. There was much more grease in the system. There was much more flushables in the system. There was much more of everything in the system. But yet the DPW, the Water Sewer Department, still maintained their duties during that whole time. And to that, I give them credit. I also thank the administration for giving us the tools to perform these duties and the city council for appropriating these tools. And I hope we can continue giving us the tools and the opportunity to get the work done. As I think everybody can see that it's happening in the city. And I think in another couple of years, you're gonna see an even more noticeable difference of what's going on. Literally, some of the achievements that we've accomplished, we've completed the first round of hydrant inspections on over 855 hydrants in the city. We have a good idea of what they are, how they work, what needs to be replaced, what needs to be maintained. They've all been painted. Well, pretty much they've all been painted. Now we're on the second round of inspections, which now you'll see a red hydrant, a yellow bonnet. that signifies a second inspection. We still had, we've maintained the 4,500 catch basins, rebuilt over 50. We've cleaned, countless. We've still maintained the 107 miles of water lines with 84 water breaks last year. May I, remind everybody, 84 out of 365 days. That's a big chunk of manpower. And we still were able to maintain the system. We also still completed other projects. We were able to complete 2 major drainage improvement projects, one on Pearl Avenue and one on Asti Ave and Geneva. Also, we did another project on McClure. So, and also, maintaining the 29 pump stations that we have, the 1,600 gate valves that we have, and what have you. So last year, we also replaced 40 hydrants, in excess of 4 hydrants. 25, the DPW did on our own, 15 a contract. We had, it was contracted out. We have another hydrant list put together this year for another 40 hydrant replacements. And so basically the infrastructure is starting to improve, and we continually upgrade it. We also need to concentrate on our water system. 107 miles of water lines. We need to, at least to stay current, we would need to replace 1.1%, which would be about a mile a year. But with 84 breaks, we're in less than 4 miles have been replaced in the last 10 years. We need to up that and increase that water main replacement from 1 mile a year to probably about 3 miles a year. So those are some of the accomplishments we've had, and I think that looking around little by little, you start to see an improvement in the city. I think every year you'll start to see some gains, and I think that will continue while Paul, Joe Maglione, DPW staff, and myself are continuing giving us the opportunity to continue our work. So, as far as the budget, I'm open for questions. Is there anything, if you want to go over the employees, I'm sure there's going to be questions about the new positions that we have.
If you like, I can open it up for discussion. It's up to you.
Certainly. Yeah, go ahead.
If you want to make it a little easier. And, why don't we start off with Council Serino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, that is page 11, to section Enterprise Fund. Council Serino, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Donnie. Donnie, I just want to say thank you and give you guys accolades. When people think of, well, first of all, let me first say thank you for all the work you've done in Ward 6 over the past year. I know we talked about it this past Monday, and everything that you guys have done in Ward 6 on Asti and Toscano and Geneva. But one thing really stuck out for me over the course of this year. When we think of when we think of city employees who are out working, on holidays and whatnot, we usually think of police and fire. But on Christmas Eve and Christmas morning this past year, your guys had 2 water main breaks, one right off Washington Ave on Bruno Street, and one off Revere Street. And your men, I don't really think, got to experience Christmas with their families because they were out all night Christmas Eve and then again on Christmas morning.
But you brought us food.
That's right. No, but I just wanted to commend you guys and thank you for the service that you provide to our residents. And thank you for always being accessible as well when I have issues.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to add to those accolades, aside from holidays and work, I think there are other things that people don't realize that you guys do. And one thing that was really brought to my attention recently were the several fires that we've had in the city of Revere. And I think it's so important to know, we praise our fire department, who's wonderful and deserves every ounce of praise. But Donnie, if it wasn't for the work that you and your team had done ahead of time on those hydrants, we would have been in a lot worse shape as a city. And I think it's
Thank you, Councilor Fugino, for recognizing that. That is very important.
Yes.
Because you start reviewing the data, 2018, 2019, it was sketchy.
It was scary.
Yeah.
And I think your foresight and the work that you guys did, you made it easy for the fire department to do their job. And also, we're lucky that there were no, serious injuries or loss of life in these incidents. And I don't know if we would have had that outcome if the hydrants weren't in the condition that they were in. So that's something that, I'm incredibly grateful for as a counselor, but as a resident. So again, I think it's one of those things, so many things fall under the DPW and I don't think people acknowledge or even understand it. And when I was at one of those fires with Councilor Serino on Ward 6, I saw your team out there. I saw them making sure the hydrants were working and I talked to them after the fires and really learned a lot more than I knew about what you guys do. So thank you for that, and you really did a great job.
Yeah, I tell you, you stop and think about it, and one of the most important pieces of infrastructure we have in the city, and all cities, is water. I mean, I hate to get deep into it, but it sustains life and it keeps you safe. So, but if you think about it, that's one of the things that I think we put into the spotlight is that the focus on the hydrants and the focus on the water system. Over the past 9 years, the city has had to address the sewer system, which we have, and we've accomplished a lot with almost 80% of our sewers lined now. But now it's time to focus on the 107 miles of antiquated water system, the water infrastructure that we have, and the inadequate drainage system that we have in the city, being, less than probably 2/3 of the city having, proper drainage. And then once, like, Paul touched upon, the focus now is that, again, we understand that some streets and pavement, is negligible. We understand that. But we also have leaking natural, gas pipes, cast iron gas pipes that leak natural gas. And it's common in every city in the United States. And natural gas is a greenhouse gas. It escapes through the pipes and it permeates through the streets and it permeates through the asphalt and it's greenhouse gas. It also adds to your rates, your natural gas rates, what you pay. So I know it's an inconvenience for the gas main replacement, but there's a concerted effort between the city of Revere and National Grid to get these mains replaced with plastic gas lines so that they do not leak. Once that's done, we focus on the water lines, and then we focus on the drainage, and then we focus on the street and the sidewalks. Even if, the sidewalk, when the sidewalks don't exist, create the sidewalk. So that's our focus. And so, we have to start someplace. And we're starting with the gas, and then, obviously the water, and, subsequently the drainage and what have you. So, just be patient, but little pieces of the city will be done. And, we look back in a few years, and those pieces to the puzzle are gonna start to come together. And once they come together, it's gonna be, it's gonna be a good picture. So, but, are there any questions about?
Council McKenna?
I don't have any questions, Johnny. I just want to give you accolades. I know you've done a lot of work in Ward 1, Victoria Street. You went above and beyond what you were supposed to do. Pearl Ave, I know you fixed a big problem down there. But I just want to say, when I first met Donnie, I was so green to, everything. And I called him because the residents were complaining about Wilson and Vinyl Street, that it was flooding.
Taft, yeah.
So I talked to him about it, and he called me back about, 3 or 4 hours later, and he said, Councilor McKenna, I just want you to know that I pulled out 11 yards of rocks and debris from that part of Wilson and Vinyl that were getting flooded. And he said, you shouldn't have a problem anymore. And we don't. So I mean, that was a story in itself. And I've seen you like open a manhole, a sewer cover and jump down on it. I'm like, what? What is he doing? So down Pearl Ave, that was one of them. You stuck your arm way down to show me where the pipe was. I couldn't believe it. So I really do believe, I know we've had our differences, but I think you're an asset to the city of Revere. I think you're a hard worker. I think you have a plan. You're very, very intelligent about infrastructure, and we couldn't ask for a better guy to be the head of that. And I know you have a plan for Revere, and I know it will get done. So I just want you to know that I'm very appreciative of you and your work and your men.
Well, I certainly have some skin in the game. I grew up in the city, I still live in the city. So, now in the past 6 to 7 years, I've gotten to understand the city. In the last 3 years, I've actually, gone into the depths of the city, and I have a good understanding of how it ticks now and, where the deficiencies are. But it just takes time and money, unfortunately. And I'm sorry for both.
I couldn't agree more. If you don't mind, before the accolades start coming on the left side of the council, do you mind if I ask some
Absolutely.
budget questions? Yep. It's, all right, it would, in looking at the salary section of this, you mentioned the 4 positions. Obviously, we touched upon the construction oversight, hoping that that's going to add some value and save some money to your department.
So when it was brought up in Paul's discussion, I'd like to elaborate on the construction oversight, because it's important to have an understanding of really what the position is. There are many times that I've wanted a representative of the city to be out there with a private contractor or a utility company. Now, these utility companies and private contractors, they don't owe the resident anything, but we do. So we owe them service, we owe them courtesy, and we owe them information. And I don't have that out there. And I certainly can't, with 11 guys in the water department, and may I go back to the 4,500 catch basins, 107 miles of water mains, 29 pump stations, I can't spare a guy to sit and watch National Grid on the general side, and on the water and sewer side, a drain layer, a contractor installing $600,000 worth of drainage in a street, or soon to be, millions of dollars going down Sargent Street, Sherman Street, Broad Sound Avenue, and Hastings. I can't spare a guy. Unfortunately, I just can't spare a guy. So when a resident has a question, and they have to either some interaction with the contractor, they're not always showing, they're not representing the city, that's for sure. So we need to have a representative of the city. He has City of Revere imaging, so that they know, identification, so that they know who they are. And there's some sort of oversight somebody from the city that's representing the city, because we have some investment there. But what I'll get phone calls after the fact. The damage is already done. This person did this, and they parked here, and they dropped this debris here, and the damage is already done. I can't help it at that point. I can only do collateral damage. So these positions are important, and we're also cutting out the oversight for these engineering companies that we've accrued charges, many, costs on. We do a water job, which we have another one coming now, well, probably, $3 million. Well, we have to pay a couple $100,000 for oversight? I don't think so. When we can have an employee on our books that, has knowledge and knows the contacts and can have direct communication with the councilors or the mayor's office, the engineering office, the DPW, and the water billing office. So I think that's important. there's too many times, too many instances have come up with National Grid running amok, contractors not doing what they're supposed to do without city eyes on the project. Now, I think that our guys are more than capable and have have plenty of experience to be the representatives of the city.
I couldn't agree more. Counselor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to speak to Don's point that, this seems kind of a mundane example, but when we had the project on Geneva Street and Toscano Ave, there was a resident who called me because the contractor had left asphalt chippings and rocks all in front of his driveway. And it took I had to call Donnie, and Donnie had to stop what he was doing, come out, we went out, we met the resident, and they took care of it. But with a position like this, and again, that's a, very mundane example, but with an oversight position like that, we'd have somebody on site that, would nip that in the bud the very same day versus, the following day or whatnot. And then there was another time that we were out on Asti Ave and the same project, but the contractor was kind of illegally parked and blocking traffic, and Donnie, had to call that person's supervisor and say, hey, he's blocking traffic. So thank God Donnie was there at that moment, but, these are just little mundane things that, could, for residents could be a quality of life issue. So I just wanted to speak to that.
Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That position that we're talking about right now is so important, not just in making sure that the site is cleaned afterwards, but also when you're doing a trench, the compacting ratio, making sure that the good fill is going in. Coming back, having the contractor, whoever's responsible, come back within a few months and make sure that if it's settled too much, we address it, okay? And I know when they did the water lines down on my area where I live, I haven't seen one area where the compacting or the fill has sunk, okay? If it has sunk, it's probably an eighth of an inch or something like that. And I know when Donnie and his crew cleaned the Eastern County ditch, I think it was a culvert under Revere Street, they went in there, they found, I think it was 2 feet of sediment on the bottom. In fact, they originally thought it was a 6-inch culvert, and it turned out, I think, to be an 8-inch, a 6 foot.
It was a 4-foot tall culvert with 3 feet of sand in it.
Sediment, yeah, exactly.
That probably ended up there in the storm of 1978.
Yeah, and probably wasn't cleaned since then.
No.
Okay, and that was an expensive job, but the mayor was able to get some type of mitigation from the project down on Ocean Avenue that paid for that. It was very expensive. So I think that, we have someone here, namely Donnie, and I'm going to throw him an accolade too, because I really believe this. I knew Donnie before he got involved the way he is now, and I'd listened to him, and right away I knew of his experience, I knew of his work ethic and his commitment to getting a job done and making everyone in the city look great. And I credit also the mayor for that, for recognizing Donnie's talents and his commitment to doing a good job. Thank you.
If we can just move on to, I know the laborers are pretty standard. I'm sure you'd probably like another 10
back in the 80s, I think they had 100.
That's right. So I understand that. If you can explain the AMI analyst position,
So the AMI analyst is a position, right now, the water meter billing office, we hire principal clerks, that's the position, and it's, rudimentary, work. The AMI analyst is a little bit more specific to the smart meters that we have in the city. So, as we get more experience with the meters, they have amazing capabilities, to detect leaks into people's homes immediately, so that people don't suffer the water damage that have, or the water loss that we have. So, but this is it's very unique position where you have to scrutinize the data that is constantly streaming in by these water meters that are constantly sending a signal 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it's constant data that comes in, and it's not just it's not an alert that says, hey, so-and-so address has a leak. It's not. You don't know if there's more people staying in the house, that maybe visitors staying in the house, that could be the thing. So basically it's determining how to read the data. It's how to reading the data. And once you get into it, it's pretty unique. So it takes a little bit more advanced skills, computer skills. And I believe this is extremely necessary because with the water rates going where they are, people are very sensitive to, loss of water and, water usage. And I think we've gotten a lot better on accountable water. Sometimes we find, which we like to think maybe they're natural springs, but unfortunately it's a lot of leaky pipes, sometimes. But, you can't really determine it until you test it. But we have, the capability of our census program is amazing. And I don't think we use, 20% of it. Yeah. And we keep, but every day we enhance and we make gains with it. But it takes very experienced people to understand this, with people with great computer talents. So I believe this is this would be, a tremendous gain for that office, just so that we can, just be a little bit more on board with the over 14,000 meters that we have out there. So,
to your point, Donnie, I couldn't agree more. To validate that, it was a personal. I got a call. I think it was a letter stating, or was it a call? I forget, but I thought it was a letter stating that you have a leak at your house, right? A potential leak. Mm-hmm. So I open it. I'm at my office, and I'm like, okay, what could be happening? I call your office, and they told me, and I'm like, geez, I didn't see that, any of the toilets were leaking or anything like that. And the first thing you're thinking, you're throwing money out the window, right? Is that water's running and my meter keeps going. And to your point, I went outside, and probably one of my children left the hose on and shut it, or left it on just a little bit, and it was leaking, from the nozzle. And sure enough, you shut it, and it solved the problem. But yeah, that notification, if I didn't, if I wasn't notified and I didn't go back in the backyard for a week,
you would be responsible.
It's right.
You'd be responsible for that money.
It's right. So I was going to give you a call about it, but I said, it was only a couple of days, so I'll consume it.
I'll give the credit to the water meter billing office. They deserve the credit.
There you go. But Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Who, on this AMI analyst position, who does that now, that sends those letters out, that looks at that?
So the letters are basically a principal clerk. It's the finding out right now we have a person in the office right now that does have a good understanding of the data and how to scrutinize the data. And what she does is she creates a leak alert list, and then we just form the letter, and then just get sent. They get sent out by a clerk.
Yeah. And I can relate, like the chairman. I got a letter myself, and they said you have extra water showing on your meters, and I said, what could it be? You know, when I called, I said, what could it be? And they said, well, could be one of your toilets. And it turned out that the toilet was going through the little tube in the top, the water was coming up
It's
too high.
amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
And it was, you know, I could adjust it myself to bring the level down, and.
It's absolutely amazing.
That
Now, in the
solved it. It
past,
solved the problem.
those
It was
have run,
terrific.
in the past, those have run for months, possibly years. Who's really cognizant of a small leak?
Yeah.
You really don't know. But, you know, over the course of time, it adds up to some serious money. Not only water rate, but the sewer rate.
Absolutely.
Counsel Zambudo?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know you don't like when I throw bouquets at the attendees here, but sometimes you have to do it. You know, I think I've thrown a lot of bouquets at you privately, and you know I have you in high esteem for your talents and your work ethic. But you were tasked with a job of Chief of Infrastructure that's been neglected for 80 years. And you know, just looking at some of those pipes, those water pipes that start off as 8-inch pipes and an inch of water gets through them now because of the neglect. And, you know, when something's underground, nobody wants to spend money on it because you don't get any votes spending that money.
No, it was deferred maintenance, and, you know, but it's not unique to the city of Revere.
No.
That was a problem throughout the country.
Absolutely.
But now, you know, we're all aware of the pipes underneath our feet. They deliver our water, they take away our sewage, they take away our stormwater. I mean, these things are what make our civilization great, and, you know, if we don't have them, you know, who are we?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and, you know, unfortunately, most cities like Revere got brought to their knees by a consent decree that, you know, wake up, you've got these SSIs, and you got to do
SSOs, yeah.
something about them, and here it is. But all I can say is I'm grateful the mayor saw fit to put you in this position. He knew your talent and your work ethic, and it's a great fit with people like Paul at your side and all the hardworking guys in the department. But it takes leadership to get this type of stuff done, and I'm grateful you're in that position. And the only other thing I want to say is that absolutely we have to have people overseeing, especially these contractors. And I don't want to single out CDM Smith, but there's a lot of money spent there, and they work for us, but that, like you said.
well, we're trying to change that. We're spreading it around.
I know that, and the deal is that, you know, they don't work directly for the homeowners, we do.
No.
And they work for us, and oversight is always a good thing. So keep up the good work, and
So just one quick point to all you councilors is that, you know, the quick analogy for infrastructure or the state of the cities is that as the cities grew, as this city was 20,000 or 25,000 people, as it grew to 60,000 people, the pipes didn't grow.
no.
You know, they stayed the same. They all stayed the same. They're still there. From the 1940s to the 1950s to the 1960s, they're all the same size.
Yeah.
They didn't grow as the city grew.
Yeah.
If, you know, that is not sustainable.
No, and they deteriorated to a point where, you know, they got to be replaced. Anyways, thanks for your service, and keep up the good work.
Donnie, if I may, if we can just go to the non-salary items and just touch upon a couple of line items. There was contracted services for $500,000 that was requested, but it wasn't given. And I'm not sure if that is somewhere else, and I can defer to Rich Viscay if you'd like. I'm sure he knows where that money is.
Yeah, as part of the capital plan, those oversight services are actually bondable, and they can be paid for through the MWRA's loan service programs that they have. So as part of the capital expenditures that you made with the one-time funds. We did appropriate $100,000 for services that may not qualify, typically drainage-type projects, but there's $500,000 that we moved from the operating budget into the capital budget for those services.
Okay. And there's a couple other new line items, and you probably touched upon it in the earlier, but it's preventative maintenance and emergency receipts, emergency repairs, let me
Yeah.
say. I'm sorry about that.
So
if you can just
preventive
elaborate a little
maintenance,
bit.
that's, again, we have 29 pump stations in the city. Some of the pump stations have 2 to 3 pumps. Some have 1. But the preventive maintenance on those stations is to make sure that those pumps are periodically removed and sent out to be refurbished. You can't expect a pump to work constantly. You know, it's just a machine. It will break. And if you don't have some preventive maintenance program, you will get caught at the wrong time and that pump will fail. When it fails, it's an emergency. So a constant cycling of pumps, sending them out to be rehabbed, whether it's through some of our pumps manufacturers are Flight, Xylem, or Surumi. So you send them back to the manufacturers to be overhauled. For most stations, we have a spare, but you're constantly replacing the spare, pulling out a pump, sending that out to be refurbished, and putting it back into stock as a spare. So you're constantly, you don't wait for it to break. I do believe in preventive maintenance. As far as emergency repairs for water mains, we found it very difficult last year during the pandemic with 84 water breaks. Particularly one week, we had 16 water breaks. The guys were pretty much, beat.
Yeah.
And at that point, when you have guys that are that tired, that's a recipe for disaster. Whether they're driving heavy machinery, they're in trenches, mistakes can happen when you're tired, when you're working, double shifts, it's not good. So we need the ability to call in a contractor during an emergency situation, and particularly it's a water break. 16 water breaks, one day I had 6 water breaks on Taft alone, 6. We repaired it, turned the water back on, break, turn the water back on, break, turn the water back on, break, 6 times. Library Street, 3 times in one day. Squire Road, 3 times in one day. There's a point of, absurdity, and at some point in time, you have to have the ability to call a fresh team in.
Yeah,
So
I couldn't agree more.
it's there, it's there. Whether we use it, hopefully we don't.
Excellent, yeah. I couldn't agree. I think it's good to have in case of an emergency. So we don't want to overwork our employees to the point where they're getting hurt and just too tired in putting in those hours, because I'm sure they'll work until you tell them to stop.
It's a unique crew. They work the heavy machinery. They understand how the water system goes together, the fittings, the pipes. You just can't take, gentlemen from the sign department and throw them in a hole and expect that they're going to be able to perform the same way a water crew does who's used to these emergencies. How's this? You have a 12-inch main kind of just blowing up in the street, and you want to shut that water down as fast as possible. You have water loss, unaccountable water, you have flooding in the streets, you have loss of services to the people. So, and we quickly now, our turnaround time on some water breaks has been, probably less than 2 hours. Some have gone a little longer. The bigger the pipe, the deeper the pipe, but 16 in a week. Once I saw that, I'm like, you know what? I can't subject these men to it. I don't want something bad to happen. I've got to keep them safe. And this is the mechanism that will keep the guys safe in case of repetitive breaks.
I'm
You good? Counselor Novoselsky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I have to give some more accolades, you know, but you guys are just doing a great job. Your team is great, and they're quick. And just some of the notes that I've seen in the budget, the differences from 4 years ago to now on the SSOs. Now, we had anywhere from 9 to 15 SSOs going on around the city. Last year, we had one. And this year, we've had none so far.
None.
And
None.
that is a sign,
Getting better.
that things are
Improvement.
definitely getting better, that our sewer lines are not blocked as much, they're more free-flowing, we've straightened things out down the Garfield, we've straightened out that
I
line
can't-
down there.
I can't imagine
And things have
any,
been working just outstanding.
you seen the equipment that
Outstanding.
that the council's appropriated for us?
Absolutely.
It's out in the street.
And that's why we do it.
We
That's
run
why
miles
do
of
it.
solar lines a day.
The number of gate replacements that you've done,
Oh, yeah?
just in the last year,
Oh, yeah?
even during COVID, you were doing gate replacements, closing gates that were open for umpteen years. And I'll use my neighborhood as an example up in Tuttle Hill, right?
Youngs.
Huh?
Youngs.
Youngs Hill, Tuttle's in Beachmont. Youngs Hill, which is at the top of Walnut Ave, James Street, even though we changed the new pipes up there for some of the streets, they were still low on pressure. But now, once we closed all those gates around the whole perimeter, Beach Street, Campbell Ave, Revere Beach Parkway, Hillside Ave, now they have better pressure up there. I'm not saying it's 100%
No.
the way they want it.
It's improved.
But it's definitely improved.
Thank you.
Now, one more question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, and it was mentioned before by Councilor Zambudo, the consent decree. Where do we sit with that? We're putting away millions and millions of dollars every year, and I know we're bonding it out and getting loans here or there and whatever, but where do we stand with the consent decree as far as, is there an end to this?
Of course, there's an end to it. And if you see
When?
that the spending is, you know, it has been, you know, being clicked down. The spending has been clicked down. The worst is behind us. So now it's just, you know, when I said 80% of our soil lines aligned, we still need to line 100% of our soil lines, and we still need to line 100% of our manholes. So, but, you know, it's the city of Revere, we're not in a unique situation. Many of the cities and towns are in the same situation, spending money, but, you know, I mean, the money maybe should have, well, not maybe should have been spent. It wasn't spent. Now we're unfortunately paying the price now. But there is an end, and there is an end relatively soon. But, you know, I think, you know, that is something that at some point in time I'll get into when I find, you know, talk to CDM and really get into the, you know, get with the you know, have a good understanding of the consent decree and when we can actually, you know, maybe there's a point where we can petition to try to get out of it if we're doing our job, and we seem to be, we have been doing our job. But, you know, we give the reports every 6 months, and they see this data, and they see it getting better every year. So we have an argument now. So maybe this is a time that we start to take a stand and say, you know, but see, the consent decree was set forward. These are benchmarks that we were required, we agreed to meet. And that was something that was negotiated many years ago. So, you know, can you get back to the table and renegotiate it? I don't know, you know.
And Mr. Chairman, you know, just to finalize this, you know, I as a councilor, and I'm sure the other councilors, don't mind putting money away for this stuff, you know, because we know we have to. But, you know, if we made some kind of agreement and say, listen, we're going to guarantee, say, instead of 20 million, 10 million a year, you know, for the next 5 years, if that's what's going to take to do, maybe they can back off, you know, with us and know that we've already proven ourselves of what we've done to say, hey, listen, let us do what we have to do without the decree over our heads.
but you get the report, and there's, the facts are there. We've taken a tremendous amount of I&I out of the system that would normally be there, you know, whether people pumping from their basements or whether, you know, and pumping it into this, into the sewer system, whether it's infiltration through the sewer mains. We removed a lot of it. And that's, you know, that's saving the city money as far as what we discharge to Deer Island to be treated. We're not treating rainwater. We're not treating groundwater. So, you know, the city has, you know, some benefits, a lot of benefits from it. But this work needed to be done. And, you know, arguably you can't have SSO and sewage running into the streets. So, and now you see the figures, you see the facts that we're not, that doesn't happen anymore.
And I see it in my neighborhood, because we down at Elliott Road, we used to get it constantly. Haven't seen one in the last 5 years.
So, the rainfall last night would have been a good example of, we would have had many SSOs. Manholes would have been dancing on the street.
Right.
And they don't do that
So,
anymore.
Well, again, the final accolades,
you,
outstanding work. Actually, both you guys and your crews. I can't talk
Thank
any
you.
more greatness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Donnie, I just have one question for you. The pump station down on Rice Avenue for the stormwater discharge, we just had, didn't we last year just have one pump rebuilt of the two? And I know there's a second pump in there. Can you tell me how that's operating and if we're gonna rebuild it and when?
The station was in total failure. It's now under control.
Yep.
Two check valves were totally disintegrated. They were bronze flabbergates. Salt water, the king tides, is what happens is they reach those bronze flabbergates and they basically, you know, disintegrated them to nothing. So the heavy tide, the water was coming back into the drainage system. Two isolation valves have been replaced. Those are brand new. The check valves are brand new. New pumps new. We have the station engineering services under contract to redo the electrical, the backup generator, the control panels, the service going into the building, and we also have under contract a redesign of the station, of basically the mechanical functioning. So what's going to happen with those pumps is they're going to come out and we're going to be putting high-speed submersibles in. So that's the plan for that station.
Thank you very much, Donnie.
You're welcome.
Okay, if there is no other questions, I'm pretty good with all the rest of the numbers, Donnie. And in closing, I just want to obviously say that it's evident that there has been a transition and you see your trucks out there quite a bit. There is, it's good to see that that work is being done. And as my colleague said, it's hard to spend when you're spending money on infrastructure that you can't see. People don't like doing that because they can't visually see the improvements. So that's a big number. And that's why it always causes a problem. But because of the can being kicked down the road, we are where we are, and there's obvious improvements being done, and that's kudos to you and your department, and Paul Argenzio. You guys have worked together as a team. It's a collaborative effort, and I can't commend both of you enough on the job that you guys have been doing. Donnie, they say you're a workhorse. So, you know, and you as well. But having that, you want to be able to keep those people in the city. We don't want you to go anywhere, obviously. So it's good to see that we have you guys, and I'm sure the council and the administration is happy about that. So, and it's our job as councilors to give you guys the tools and the equipment to succeed, and that's what we're trying to do. You know, within reason, obviously, because at the end of the day, it's all about the numbers as well. So I want to commend you on a job well done.
Just on
Mr.
that
Chair-
note, I want to queue up one, I'm sorry, Counselor.
You're
Mr.
going to give
Chairman.
another accolade
No,
after mine?
Not really, no. I think in the form of education, I think we should save some video of all, may say 10 years ago, the SSOs, and show that every now and then and say, this is why we have to spend these millions of dollars, because when you saw those on a regular basis, I can't even count how many there were, but we used to see them every storm, and we don't see them anymore, and it's a big change. And we've spent millions, and people want to know why, and like you say, it's all hidden, nobody knows,
Yeah.
but the proof is in the pudding. You don't have them anymore, and it's only going to keep getting better.
I want to say that we're running up on 7 o'clock, and I've tried to keep within that time frame. But Donnie, if you have anything.
So there's one other
and-
item
and-
that you touched upon, and that was street sweeping. So last year, Paul had 2 street sweepers to address the leaves. So one just making a pass doesn't collect them. So talking about street sweeping, to the point of street sweeping, it's cheap to get the material off the street. Very cheap. Street sweeper. You know, broom, brush, you know, shovel. Very cheap. Throw it in a pile. When it gets into the catch basin, then you have to remove it. It becomes a little bit more expensive. Now you're talking the Vacta. Now you're talking, you know, cleaning the catch basin, a little bit more time, a little bit more labor. When it gets from the catch basin to the main, out to the ditch, now it becomes cost prohibitive. Because now you're talking about permits, EPA, DEP, all sorts of permitting, and then the expertise to remove it, you know, in a wetlands or a ACEC area. So now it becomes even more expensive. So the cheap way of getting it, to nip it in the bud, is getting it in you know, before it ends up in the catch basin. To your point, Chairman, Counselor. So me and Paul had talked about a vacuum sweeper. So there is many industrial sweepers that the airports use. So we are looking at a company that makes commercial vacuum sweepers, and one appropriately named the Tornado. So made by a company in the Midwest. So this is what we're looking at. So at some point in time, they'll be coming across your, you know, over your radar.
He's prepping us
Well,
already.
Donnie, I can assure you, you'll have my support on that.
Donnie, thanks again for the explanation and going through it and all the work you do. If you don't mind, to try to move it along, we've spent 2 hours on just DPW tonight, which is great, and that's the fact of how important it is. So if we can move along to just waste, a solid waste, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's us.
page 20 and 21.
Sure. So some of the accomplishments, we added a couple of weeks of yard waste pickup for a total of 20. The residents were clamoring for that. We are now in the process of hammering out a new 3-year contract for trash and recycling, which we hope to bring some costs down and have a little better control over what's happening out on the street. We've been very successful getting grants from Mass DEP for our recycling education. We did 2 years of that. We will, in the next couple of weeks, be starting a 3rd year of that, just to try and educate the public with everybody's recycling efforts. You know, unfortunately, a lot of people think they're recycling correctly, and they're not. So it's costing the city a lot of money. They're trying. They think they're doing what they're supposed to. So the educational aspect of that, we're going to try to enhance and educate the public. As far as the line items or on the salary page, that's pretty much as you see it.
Yep.
Swing shift foreman. So any questions there? We moved a principal clerk who does a lot of work with the recycling program. I credit her for getting all these grants that we never really received before. She's been very successful at doing that. She's been moved right into the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. So I'll get on to the line items. Trash removal, that's the contract for what now is Capital Waste, and I believe we're going to be working with Capital Waste in the future. Small increase there. The recycling disposal, we hope to bring that number down. We are starting to clean up our recycling. The market is getting a little bit better. So we hope to enter into a better contract to dispose of our recycling. Rubbish disposal is what we pay to Wheelabrator. Those cost increase are just built into the contract that we have with them. Computer services, we have the trash app that hopefully residents are taking advantage of. We have the tracking software on our blue carts that we purchased 2.5 years ago. Pest and rodent control, I think the city's been very successful in controlling the rodent population. I know in my area, it's almost non-existent now. A couple of years ago, it was overrun. So there's a little decrease in there just because it's been so successful. The capital outlay, this is for the leasing of the trash barrels we purchased. We're going to be reaching the end of that lease in January, so that cost is now going to disappear. New equipment, there is the purchase of additional recycling barrels and trash barrels that we purchase and then, sell back to the public at, almost a wash with us. We don't, make a lot of money from that. And that's basically it. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More of a comment regarding recycling. As a ward council, and I'm sure the other ward councilors can vouch for this, especially this time of year through the fall, we get a lot of calls from residents that, the city didn't pick up their recycling and they got the little tag on their on the recycling bin. And I just want to say, as we look at the numbers, people don't realize how expensive recycling and the disposal of the recyclables are to the city. So it's a necessary evil, when unfortunately, and I try to explain to residents who call me and complain that, we're not doing this because we're trying to nickel and dime and kind of, pick on you, but we're doing this in the end to save the taxpayers money because the cost for recycling has just been going through the roof. So that was just more a comment to the residents to, this is why we do what we're doing. And I'm glad to see that we've invested in educational resources too. So thank you.
Council President Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to follow up on what my colleague said, it's really about education because I don't know who said it, but somebody told me that it's probably 75 or 80% of the recycling is contaminated because people are not educated on what goes in there and what can't go in there. And, it would be great if we could burn it all and create energy from it, clean energy. And, but we can't do that.
We can't do that.
But so what I'm saying, what I'm really saying is to my constituents out there, if you're bothered by this, nitpick, what looks like nitpicking, it really isn't. We're just trying to survive. It costs twice as much to recycle now as it does to put trash out there.
Yes, correct.
So we really got to do it right. And it seems like a pain in the neck, but if you're careful and you don't throw an oily pizza box in there and you just throw that in the trash, you're going to save taxpayers money and we won't be coming back and raising taxes. So that's what it's about. It's about education. It's not about trying to punish anybody. We're just trying to, we never imagined, when I was first running for office, we used to go to a place and bring our recycling, and I know you remember, Paul.
That's right, I do.
And we were one of the first communities to have curbside recycling
Yes.
in the state. And it was all great, and we were getting paid for the recycling.
Yeah.
And now it's all upside down. So it really is important to do it right. We all want to recycle, but we got to do it right. You got to put clean stuff in there. You got to be careful that you don't put styrofoam. You don't put things that don't belong in recycling. And that's why you get these things in the mail that show you what can go in and what can't go in. Please abide by them, because it's that important.
Right, and I do want to say, if I could just say briefly, I'd be remiss in not saying this, the Inspectional Services Department has really been backing us up with enforcement of proper trash disposal, and they've been very proactive in the street, and they are a part of our success at improving the situation.
As somebody once said, there's a lot of money in trash. And, I mean, it's costing us almost 4.5 million, so.
Right.
Yes. But with that said, do you have, Counselor Novoselsky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple items on your list of things. Rubbish removal, new contract coming up. I hope we're going to emphasize, whoever it is, that they don't throw the barrels around in
Yes.
the middle of the street, and they clean up after they drop. Very, those are the biggest complaints I get from people. And I think it's important that we stress that to whoever the contractor is.
Yes, that is
Okay.
all in the new contract, and
Perfect.
there's fines that are associated with
Yeah.
that we can
And
levy against the contractor.
Right, and the recycling disposal program, unfortunately, we don't have the gifts that we used to get, but it's working, and people are saying, well, why do we have to recycle?
Right.
If they're not using it, because some of the guys that pick up talk to the neighbors. They
Right.
say, I don't know why they're making you recycle, it's going into the same pile.
Yeah, no.
But this is what's going
Yeah,
on,
I know.
and they have to be told that, not to talk to the neighbors.
Correct, yes, yeah.
Thank
The
you.
DEP mandates it, it's not
And
something we can...
one last thing on pest control.
Sure.
I know we dropped it down. Now, are we still, if someone complains about rodents, are we still helping them with bait
Oh,
boxes?
positively, in the water and sewer, they have the money that goes out to these two contractors. One has the east side of the city, one has the west. The money in this is more for education and what have you. 311, Randy there is very active. He gets a complaint, and it's a service we're providing and continue to provide.
And the 311 gang is terrific.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
That will be all for the public works section of tonight's meeting. I want to commend you and thank you again for the detailed explanations, and I
Okay.
appreciate you guys both being here. Moving
welcome.
forward, if we can just get Mr. Viskey back up there and just explain the different other sections of this budget. I know we're running a little behind, but it's the first one out of the past four that we are running behind, and if we can speed up that process, my apologies.
I will try to be as brief.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. We're going to start off with the debt service section, and that's page 83 to 85, unclassified, and then the retirement expense. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. I will be
Section
brief.
2.
This is pretty much the fixed cost part of the budget. As Councilor Visconti said, on page 83 is a summary of your debt service. You certainly have a more detailed analysis of your debt service as part of your budget book. However, these basically represent the debt service payments that are required to be made as part of the fiscal year 2022 budget. We do have some debt offsets. We do have a subsidy for lease rental car for the construction of our police station, as well as offsets from Amoresco for the debt service for the school, and a offset from school building from bond premiums that we receive when we sell our bonds. So that's a fixed cost for the city. There's not much we can do about that budget, other than we're legally required. Even if you didn't fund those lines, I'd have to pay them and raise them on next year's recap. So that is, that, and just stop me if you want to ask a question, otherwise I'm just going to power through the rest.
If you don't mind, yeah.
I don't mind at all. So on the 900 series, that's what we do all, what we call unclassified, but basically that's our pension and our health insurance benefits, as well as our insurance for our buildings and our professional liability, as well as our FICA tax that's required to be paid. Just a brief explanation, because I know it was asked. The department request has been lowered by $157,000 to a $23.2 million figure. That reduction is due to the efforts that we are charging all of our fringe benefits to the respective grants of those people who are paid through grants. So we're going to capture all of the fringe benefits. I like to refer to them as total compensation. We want to make sure we cover total compensation when we're paying for employees through other financing sources. The Medicare tax is simply that FICA tax, 1.45%. It's going up just as a matter of natural progression of salaries and such. So we've also reduced that by $28,000 by applying those same philosophies on full cost recovery on grant-funded employees. We fund our sick leave bank through trust fund now, so we don't appropriate money as part of the general fund. So that's a zero, and has been since we set up that sick leave buyback trust fund back in, I believe, fiscal year 19. Insurance premiums, that's the insurance on our buildings, our professional liability. We have level funded that. We actually were expecting an increase of $90,000. I'm happy to say that we put that out to bid, and we are going to save upwards of about $170,000 on our insurance premiums. We're finalizing those contracts now, so there may be some turn back in that particular line. However, I'd like to increase the amount that we have for deductibles, because in some cases our deductibles have increased. We're taking a little more risk on our deductibles to have some long-term savings. We've actually had some pretty good success in our trends, other than, a tornado ripping down Broadway. We've been pretty good. So, and then finally the last line. No, I think I got it. Those are all. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I knew there was one more. Section 911, that's our retirement and pension assessment from the Revere Retirement Board. Again, that's funded as a fixed cost through the amortization schedules and the actuarial tables that have us required to fully fund our pension system by fiscal year 2040. We are on schedule to have that fully funded by fiscal year 33, which is 7 years before the required deadline. It's a bit of an aggressive schedule, but we've been able to fund that at a 5% increase year over year to achieve that funding. So, again, I don't mean to rip through it too quick, but I'm happy to answer any questions on any of those.
Any councilors? I think we're good. And actually, I'm good as well. So for a first. So thank you for the explanation, and this concludes tonight's Ways and Means Subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, certainly. I know we went through it quick, but if any questions come up in the meantime, just reach out and I'll be happy to get some more information.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.